Every October, Greeks all over the world celebrate an unusual holiday called OXI Day.
The holiday honors a turning point in Greek history and in World War II.
While other allied countries like Britain and France celebrate the end of the war, the Greeks celebrate the day they entered the war, on October 28, 1940.
On that day, Greece's leader said OXI or no to an Axis leader's ultimatum, and the Greek people said yes to defending their freedom against impossible odds.
The brave Greek resistance surprised the world, sparked hope in the Allies, and even helped turn the tide in World War II.
In October 1940, the situation looked grim for the Allies. Just a year into the war, the Axis forces already seemed unstoppable.
Germany had invaded Poland, Norway, Denmark, Belgium, and France, and they had started their deadly blitz in Britain.
Germany had signed a pact of steel with Italy, and their tripartite pact with Japan gave them a new ally.
Meanwhile, the US had not yet joined the Allies, and some Americans even sympathized with the Axis powers.
In short, it was not clear the Allies had a chance. As historian David Fromkin says, it was questionable whether freedom had a future.
In Albania, right next door to Greece, Mussolini's army had easily conquered the country. When Albania's leader had asked people to resist, they did not.
Mussolini was now lining up troops along the Greek border.
In Greece, Ioannis Metaxas had been the leader for 4 years. He was a dictator who had many fans and many critics.
Unlike Mussolini, though, he encouraged advisors to voice opposing views, and he tried to keep Greece neutral as long as he could.
But he quietly prepared Greece for an Axis attack, calling up troops gradually and fortifying the borders.
As a former army general, he was known for his strategic skill.
In August 1940, Italy sank a Greek ship, trying to bait Greece into fighting. But Metaxas didn't take the bait, waiting until Greece was better prepared.
Meanwhile, the Axis forces were not as united as they seemed. Mussolini was jealous of Hitler's triumphs and wanted more of his own.
He was also angry because Hitler didn't consult him before attacking other countries. So Mussolini decided he would do the same. He said,
"Hitler always faces me with the fait accompli. This time, I'm going to pay him back in his own coin. He will find out from the papers that I have occupied Greece."
As historian Mark Mazauer says, a fit of pique thus started off the disastrous Italian invasion of Greece, the first Axis setback of the entire war.
That Axis setback would become a turning point in the war.
And it started with a strange ultimatum delivered to Metaxas at home, late one night by the Italian ambassador.
It said, either let Italy occupy Greece in 3 hours or else it's war.
Welcome to the house of Ioannis Metaxas, the Prime Minister of Greece. I am Ioanna Foka, his granddaughter. Αυτός είναι ο χώρος όπου ο Ioannis Metaxas, πρωθυπουργός της Ελλάδας, δέχθηκε τον Εμμανουέλε Γκράτσι το πρωί της 28ης Οκτωβρίου στις 3 η ώρα παρατέταρτο. Ο Γκράτσι έφτασε απροειδοποίητα. Έπρεπε να δώσει στο Μεταξά το τελεσίγραφο εκ μέρους του Μουσολίνι. Ο Ioannis Metaxas, φορώντας τη ρόμπα του και τις παντόφλες του, οδήγησε τον Γκράτσι σε αυτό ακριβώς το χώρο. Μόλις καθίσανε, ο Γκράτσι του επέδωσε το τελεσίγραφο. Πήρε το χαρτί και άρχισε να διαβάζει προσεκτικά. Όταν τελείωσε την ανάγνωση, κοίταξε τον Γκράτσι κατάματα και συγκινημένος του είπε «Alors, c'est la guerre». Επομένως έχουμε πόλεμο.
With this famous response, Metaxas said OXI to Italy and Greece entered the war.
The Italians attacked 3 hours later, expecting an easy victory.
Mussolini's advisors were afraid to contradict him.
They had told him the Greeks were unlikely to fight hard.
As one advisor said,
"We should not meet resistance, or at most, very feeble resistance."
Another added,
Most Greeks are indifferent to everything, including the prospect of our invasion.
Mussolini expected to march on Athens within a few days.
Much of the world expected that too, because of how outnumbered and outgunned the Greeks were.
But the Greeks proved everyone wrong.
When Metaxas announced he had said OXI to Italy, the Greeks celebrated in the streets.
American eyewitnesses shared what they saw.
No one living in Greece on October 28th will ever forget the day. The Prime Minister, in his famous "No," expressed the spontaneous determination of every Greek.
The men were happy and proud to leave for the front. Their wives never shed tears, but cheered them on.
With the shriek of the sirens and the tolling of the church bells, the people instantly became as one, with the sole purpose of defending their country.
Pulitzer-winning reporter Leland Stowe covered 44 different countries during the war.
He said he was more inspired by the Greeks than by any other people. He wrote of Greek soldiers going out to fight.
An open truck bounced toward us. A machine gun had been set up in it, and someone had hung olive branches on the gun. Behind it stood a soldier with his feet braced apart, clutching the gun's tripod. As the truck swerved by, he was singing at the top of his voice.
After several weeks of fighting, the Greeks not only stopped the Italian invasion, they even drove the Italians further back into Albania.
The British, like the Americans, were inspired by the Greeks' victory.
Athens rejoices in the great victories of her wonderful troops. General Metaxas and King George have shown that it does pay to stand up to a bully if your country is solidly behind you. These pictures show how all Greeks of whatever age rallied to the country they proudly call their own.
And as the newsreel shows, it was not just young men who helped them win, but women and Greeks of all ages.
Hitler, who was trying to save resources to attack the Soviets, was furious he had to help Italy out.
And even after the Germans invaded, the Greeks kept fighting.
In the Battle of Crete, while Germany eventually won, it sustained significant losses, as Greek men, women, and even children joined the fight.
The Greek resistance lasted 219 days, longer than any other occupied country.
They even kept resisting after Greece was fully occupied.
For instance, in 1942, they blew up the heavily guarded Gorgopotamos Bridge, disrupting access supply lines.
And in 1944, they kidnapped a Nazi general.
Yet for all the inspiration the Greek resistance sparked at the time, it's surprising that in current accounts of the war, many sources overlook it.
On some timelines of major events, for instance, Greece does not even appear.
This could be because Greece was eventually occupied by the Axis powers.
Or it could be because the war lasted years, and there were many famous turning points, like Pearl Harbor, Midway, Normandy, Stalingrad, and others.
But Greece standing up to the Axis was an important turning point, and it had three major consequences.
The first consequence was in the pride Greece earned, as the grandson of one Greek soldier shared.
And then I knew that my family, we had a hero of the war, because he fought the enemy too. He fought for Greece. And you know, when you go to war, nobody promises you that you're gonna come back alive. Yet he had no fear. He was one of those hundreds of thousands of smiling faces we've seen in photographs in the museums.
The reason there is a national holiday is because Greeks are proud of how bravely their relatives entered the war and how fiercely they fought in it.
The second consequence is that the Greeks proved the Axis forces were not invincible.
They sparked hope in the Allied forces, and in those who were about to join them, such as the US. As FDR said,
when the entire world had lost all hope, the Greek people dared to question the invincibility of the German monster, raising against it the proud spirit of freedom.
The third consequence, and maybe the most important, is that the long Greek resistance diverted Axis resources that could have gone elsewhere.
This may have cost Germany the Battle of Stalingrad, and arguably the war. As one German commander said,
"The unbelievably strong resistance of the Greeks delayed by 2 or more vital months the German attack against Russia. If we did not have this delay, the outcome of the war would have come out differently."
Winston Churchill summed it up like this:
"If there had not been the virtue and courage of the Greeks, we do not know which the outcome of World War II would have been."
Back in 1940, a British official paid tribute to the Greeks. He said,
"Greece gives us a reminder that courage, brains, and determination can upset the calculations of a bully as swiftly and unexpectedly as David, with his sling, overthrew the clinking champion of the Philistines."
82 years later, another David shocked the world when he stood up to a Goliath as Ukraine repelled a Russian attack.
Here in the US, the Washington OXI Foundation saw the similarity, and they honored President Zelensky with the OXI Courage Award, where he spoke about the importance of standing up to Goliaths.
Courage can be contagious. As OXI Day and the Greek resistance show, a spark of hope can turn the tide, even against Goliaths.
This is the actual telephone that Metaxas received a ring